They took their properties. They took their dignity. They took everything. It took the liberty, but they were not able to take their education. And all of a sudden I realized I was meant to do this work. You got to be ready to do the work, and you got to be willing to do the work.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Success in South Florida podcast. I'm your host, Adam Rossen, and on today's episode, we have a very special treat. We have the Honorable Carlos Martinez. He is the elected public defender out of Miami, which is the 11th Judicial Circuit in the state of Florida. He is the operator of the largest law office in the state of Florida. It's probably definitely by attorney count, not revenue. I think Morgan & Morgan probably would have you on that. But probably clients, attorneys. I don't know about attorneys and support staff, but the largest law firm in the state of Florida is the Miami Public Defender's office.
Criminal defense.
Largest criminal defense. Yeah. Okay. So maybe Morgan & Morgan has or the state attorney's office.
And state attorneys, our local state attorney is number one. The federal prosecutor in South Florida is number two, and then it's us.
Okay. All right. So big things.
Big.
Definitely big things, but we're going to dive deep into you, your life, your history, what makes you a success, all of the just wisdom that you have. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I definitely
brought my passport north of the border, the Miami-Dade border.
Yes, I know. Well, you got to be careful nowadays.
Yeah.
And you don't want to run into any Broward prosecutors because they can smell out Miami lawyers, right? I know.
Yeah, they can. I've heard.
Look, 20 years ago when I was a Broward prosecutor, we knew the Miami lawyers coming in, and we're like, oh, this is going to be a rude awakening for them. Walking in all fancy, thinking the case is just going to get dismissed. So we got to keep you protected. But thank you so much. And I do want to just start off and say big thanks to Steve Riley from Atticus. I had the good fortune to be on Steve's podcast, the Your Practice, Your Life podcast, I think the episode dropped about a month or two ago, and we filmed it maybe 3-4 months ago talking about our internship program. And as I was on Steve's podcast, and I've known Steve for a little bit, for a few years, and I just said, Steve, who else can you connect me with that is doing amazing things? And he said, you got to meet Carlos Martinez. I'm like, well, I've known of him for years and years. Please. And he did, and he connected us. And here you are today on a Friday, pretty much taking off a half day of your very busy schedule to film this and speak to our amazing group of 12 interns this summer. So I am just filled with so much gratitude and appreciation for you coming here today. So thank you very much. And thanks, Steve Riley, for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. One of the reasons why I said yes is because hopefully some of these interns will be working for me in a few years.
I hope so. This year's group, they're swinging a little more towards the prosecution. I'm a little disappointed, but we'll see.
I'm talking to them later.
Yes, you have a great opportunity. We have a few that will definitely be former or future criminal defense and public defenders. A few who might be prosecutors, but of course we want them to be compassionate prosecutors. Right. And then a few that I think after this summer are just going to go into business and make a lot of money. Yeah. Which is good for them too. So
that's a path.
Right. But they've had an amazing summer. We've shown them everything, all the ins and the outs of a private criminal defense law firm, and really have held nothing back. And that's something that I'm very proud of, is to really give them such an amazing immersive experience that we do, which you'll see later. But okay, so can I call you Carlos?
Yes,
so
please.
Carlos. All right. I know you told the lovely Heather that you did not want to be called Mr. Martinez.
No.
I hate being called Mr. Rossen too. I'm like, just call me Adam. I could be president of the United States and I'd be like, just call me Adam.
That's right.
You don't need to deal with that. But okay, so talk to us just about your journey. I know you were born and grew up for your first few years in Cuba. So talk to us about that experience, being a young child, child of Cuban immigrant family coming to the United States and Miami. Let's start us off with there about how that shaped your youth and ultimately your future.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting experience because I did not speak English. So when we got here, they put, me and my sister, my brother's 5 years younger, but me and my sister are only 2 years apart. So they actually put us together in the same classroom for 5th and 6th grade for kids who had just arrived. And they called the class an orientation class, which later became known as ESOL.
Okay.
English as a second language. And that actually shaped us quite a bit because the teacher was a Spanish speaker who only spoke to us Spanish day one. And she told us in Spanish, I will not speak to you in Spanish again until the last day of class. She wasn't kidding, which forced us to actually learn in class. And that kind of shaped us because we knew that outside of home, we had to speak English. So even outside of our orientation class, when we interacted with the other kids, you had to speak English. And there was one incident that actually called that into attention. There was one of the teachers at that school who was not so nice. He was the PE teacher. And the PE teacher actually called me, "You stupid Cuban clown."
Oh, wow.
And he had said that because my leg cramped up when we were running around the field. It cramped up. I had never had a cramp before. So it cramps up, and my reaction was to kind of jump, and the other kids keep running.
You might have thought you were dying. You had no idea, right?
I had no idea.
Frame of reference.
I thought something had happened to my leg. Like, what is this? So I stopped, and then it's still hurting and all that. So I'm having that first reaction, and he comes running up and calls me, "You stupid Cuban clown."
In English.
In English. I had not heard those 3 words together. And so, of course, the minute we finished PE, I go back to orientation class to find out what a stupid Cuban clown mean. And then she explains it. Teacher's upset. So it was an interesting way to see what could happen. And it was also interesting to see how somebody stood up for us. And that was the teacher. We don't know what she said or what she did. But when she came back, she said, "You will never be called a stupid Cuban clown again."
And how old were you?
I was 9. I was 9 at the time.
So at 9 years old, this is something that you're still telling all these years later. So this is something that really shaped you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that actually hit because our circle of friends in the little neighborhood that we lived in Miami off of 33rd Avenue and close to Flagler Street. It was very Cuban. So when you were not in class and you were outside, you were playing or doing anything else, it was all Cuban kids. And, they would speak Spanish and, Spanglish.
Right.
All
Which
the
is
time.
still spoken today.
Oh, yeah. It's still spoken today. So, getting that shape that I didn't even know, we had never even heard the word discrimination. And all of a sudden we had that happen. And I'm like, okay, whatever. He's not going to do it again. And he did not do it again. But it is something that all of a sudden, when you're 9, somebody tells you that, you're like, whoa, that's strange. And I never experienced that in Miami, anything close to that.
Well, especially when you come to a new place. Now, obviously, Miami is very, very Spanish, very Cuban, but still, I couldn't even imagine at that age what that was like. But also, I think major credit to your ESOL, what now became ESOL, your ESOL teacher, to not just stick up for you in that situation, but even before that, to lay the foundation for all of her students.
Yeah.
To say, listen, I am removing the safety net, because that's the thing.
That's right.
You
That's
lived
right.
in a Cuban area.
Yeah.
That every night, every weekend could have all been speaking in Spanish, right? Especially maybe with your parents, with maybe family and friends. And the fact that she forced you to get out of your comfort zone, remove the safety net.
First day.
Right.
First
and just say,
day.
yep, this is your one grace day, and that's it.
She was a great teacher. And one of the other amazing things that I learned from that first year here is that they had a spelling bee at the school. Well, the spelling bee, number 1, number 2, and number 3 were all kids in our class.
Wow.
Elizabeth Martinez was number 1. I was number 2. My sister was number 3. So all three of us did the spelling bee against all the English speaking kids, and we won. So it also goes to show you that the hard work that she put in and that we put in paid off.
Right. And there really is the power of when you get a phenomenal teacher that whether you like them in the moment or not, because sometimes some of the best teachers are the ones that really push you to get out of your comfort zone. And sometimes there is that resistance. It looks like you guys did not resist. You fully bought in. You were fully immersed with the goal, in mind. But regardless of that, having these amazing, impactful teachers is a very rare thing these days. I mean, I know we all love teachers. We need more teachers, more better teachers. But to have the ones that truly leave an impact on you, that is life-changing, and it's generations changing, because if you think about it, I'm sure we'll talk about how many people do you think you've been able to have a lifelong impact on them, which then is trickling down to their family. And I know, you're very humble, right? And you might not, some people don't always like talking about those things. But if you think about it, you yourself could be somebody who has changed thousands of families.
Yeah. And that is the humbling part. The humbling part is when somebody comes up to me and they're relaying something to me that for me was routine. For me, it was not, I was not stepping out and doing something extraordinary. And for them, they took it as something extraordinary, that it was impactful. And the older I get, the harder it is to hear that, because, you're like, wow, I had an impact on that. And I wasn't even trying. It was just, that's how I am. That's how I was raised. Those were the values that my parents raised me with. And here we are.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things about us at the Rossen Law Firm is we have a mission. Our mission is to help good people when bad things happen so they can achieve their best future. We have a vision of where we want our firm to go. We have core values that guide our decision-making process. And for being a criminal defense firm, we're not just, a collection of lawyers that are partnered up, eat what you kill, or it's not just, me and a partner or a solo lawyer like what we see mostly in Florida criminal defense, private criminal defense world. But we are a real law firm, and we look at ourselves as community and relationship builders first and foremost. How we do that is through helping people through criminal defense. We have a major focus on mental health and substance abuse, and to the extent we can, because we are a for-profit business, but to the extent that we can, our lawyers and our team always have the ability to take on a low bono case, to take on some kind of issue or do what's right to stand up, for our clients and, our core values. So that's something about us that we really pride ourselves in. And I think just when you talk about impact, right, and being able to help others, I wish more private criminal defense attorneys actually thought of themselves maybe like the way that they did when they were public defenders. And so those are the other, just other things that we're really trying to do. And I know, with everything you do, it's all about impact, right? And community.
Yeah. When I looked you up, obviously before saying yes, I looked you up and I saw that and I'm like, well, your values align perfectly with my values. And the difference is I do it in the public sphere, and you're doing it in a private sphere, but it's a very public-oriented service and public-oriented mentality and mission and vision. So that's one of the reasons, besides Steve, when I read your stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Well, and that's the thing. It's one of the things I've learned over the years is like breeds like, and it's okay to attract and repel. So even at our firm, we're very comfortable now. We love diversity for diversity of backgrounds. And people hear me say this quite often. I love diversity of backgrounds. I love people with having just different experiences and, life experiences, family experiences, cultural experiences. But the way that we view the world, I don't really want much diversity in the firm. I want us to view the world the same way, view our mission the same way, being people forward, community based, right? we all work very hard. We all deserve to be compensated well for that, but not be so money,
Yeah.
or me. We are a team here, and that is something that I'm very proud of building that culture. So, the longer we've gone on, it's okay. Attract and repel. Same thing with our clients. There's just some clients that will be better off with the public defender for whatever reason, or a different private lawyer.
Right.
And then there's others that I know that we are the absolute best, and all I want to do is make sure that they hire us so we help them, because I know we will do an amazing job for them.
That's good.
But let's keep going back. So here you are, young kid in Miami, forced to learn the language, right? Coming from an immigrant household. What decade are we in now?
We're in the early 70s now.
Okay, so early 70s. Okay.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of the landscape of Miami in the early 70s.
So the landscape that I was exposed to was a landscape that was changing, and it was changing rapidly. That you had mostly, I hate this word, Anglo, which is not Hispanic, is probably a better word. But in Miami, you had a lot of folks that the power structure in Miami was not Cuban, was not Hispanic whatsoever. So there was a changing of the guard, and that became possible. Even as a young person, I was seeing it with who was becoming, who were becoming bankers and, president of banks, like, Carlos Alboleda. At the time, I just thought he was just another Cuban. And in fact, he had done a lot of things to help, kids who didn't have income actually be able to become Boy Scouts and be able to go to camp and not have to pay for your backpack, not have to pay for a bunch of things that we just could not afford. And that also showed us what it was like to have community and what it was like to have socially conscious people who are making money and they're giving back.
Right.
So I grew up in that environment, and both of my parents worked at St. John Bosco Church, and my mom was the receptionist at the church, and my dad was the maintenance man. So he was janitor, painter. He would do anything that was necessary to do at the church. So the people that I was exposed to were, on the one hand, people who were either just as poor as we were, and we didn't know we were poor.
Right. Which I think is very important.
I didn't know I was poor until much later when I applied and I went into Miami-Dade College, and I'm filling out the paperwork in the registrar's office, and they tell me, you qualify because, your family is poor. And I'm like, excuse me? We're not poor. We pay for this, we do this.
Right.
So my understanding, even as a kid, of what poor was very different because we always had food on the table. We had a roof over our heads. We had loving parents. Both parents worked full time. So there were a lot of life lessons that I didn't know were life lessons at the time. But later on, as I got older and I started seeing other things, and even when I became an assistant public defender, or even before that as an intern in the public defender's office, all of a sudden I realized that, poverty means a lot of different things. And there are levels of poverty that, even if you're below the poverty level, there can be a level of support in your family. It doesn't make the kids feel like they're poor. But in other families, there isn't that much money. There's really abject poverty. And so it helped me actually learn a lot more. And through growing up in the 70s, and in the 70s as well, I was going to public school. So I went to public school for elementary. And back then we called it junior high.
Right.
It was a while back. It was before it was
middle
called
school.
Middle school. But one of the things that I was exposed to was other kids like me, other kids that were growing up like that. But at one point when I was ready to go to high school, something had happened in the public schools here that they kept changing the boundaries. So initially I was supposed to go to Coral Gables High. Then I was supposed to go to Booker T. Washington. And then I don't remember how many months that was, but it was before school started. And then I was supposed to go to Miami High. I did not want to go to Miami High because all my cousins who went to Miami High had really bad accents, Cuban accents.
Okay.
And because I don't know, we all grew up with prejudices. My prejudice was I don't want to sound like if I'm not from here. And I wanted to be around that environment. And, I started to hang around with kids who were getting into trouble.
Of course, those are the things that happen.
And my parents were like, you know what? We're going to try to get you into a private school. Of course, their idea of a private school was like the private schools in Cuba, where the nuns had rulers and the nuns hit you if you misbehaved.
They didn't do that in the 70s here?
No, they did not. Not at LaSalle.
Okay.
At Immaculata LaSalle, where I ended up going, they did not do that. So they talked our pastor, Monsignor Vallina, they talked him into paying for my tuition. So it was not a scholarship. It was him paying out of his pocket for my tuition because both of my parents worked at the church. So I was able to attend, pretty much a middle class high school that was a private Catholic high school. And then I got exposed to different types of kids.
Talk about an impact, though.
Oh, my God.
For your parents to talk, you said it was the principal?
Yeah.
To pay for your tuition. And look at how many, right? That decision of how many lives that decision has
and
helped
that
influence.
opened up so many doors. When I look back at every experience that I've had, and there've been so many like quirky little things that we normally take for granted. And one of those things was in my house, we had paper towels for napkins.
Right.
That's what you had. And you would get one piece and you better use it properly so that you don't have food when you're eating, on your mouth or whatever. But when I went to LaSalle, I looked around. I did not see any paper towels. There were napkins there, but that's for us. Those are too expensive. You don't buy napkins.
That's for a fancy party, not just for lunch on a Tuesday.
You don't do it at lunch. And I still remember, I still have that memory that one of my wealthy friends in LaSalle were sitting at the table and he looks at me and he goes, "Why don't you ever use a napkin? You're always so careful eating. You don't never have any food on you, but why don't you use a napkins are to be used?" And I looked at him and I'm like, "Those are too expensive." He's like, "You don't have to pay for napkins here." But that was ingrained that, you live within your means, you don't do this stuff. And so even something as simple as use a napkin, here's how you use it. I learned that there. I was not exposed to that. And I had lunch at middle school, elementary and all that. Never exposed to that.
This episode of the Success in South Florida podcast is brought to you by the Rossen Law Firm. We're more than just incredible lawyers. We genuinely care about helping good people when bad things happen. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews and a proven track record of fighting for people in our community. If you need trusted legal help in South Florida, start by calling the Rossen Law Firm today, 754-206-6200. I think the great thing about being in that Catholic school was you were also exposed to people that did have money, wealth, but also middle class.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great things, generally speaking, about the religious schools is that most people are going there for the religion, right? Especially if it's Catholic school, and there's a lot of different levels of people. I mean, on a bit of the flip side, so I grew up in Boca. I grew up white collar family. My father is a dentist, general dentist. I went to Pinecrest. And so I went to Pinecrest, and I left. I went to Pinecrest Boca 7th and 8th grade, and then Pinecrest and Fort Lauderdale in 9th and 12th. And then I ended up, and I'm a Jewish kid from Boca. And being a Jewish kid in Boca, we had St. Andrews, which is Episcopalian, which is also more than 50% Jewish.
Oh, wow.
So I end up transferring to Chaminade Madonna in Hollywood, Catholic school.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience for me for my junior and senior year, and something that has completely shaped my life for the better. And it's very interesting because at Pinecrest, I was the poor, dumb kid. Even though I was not poor, I'm not dumb. But there was so much wealth there that, my family, my dad, who was a general dentist, white collar, very educated, we weren't really poor, but we were not wealthy, not old money.
Right.
Kind of probably like a Ransom, versus Gulliver, kind of, to Miami type thing. Then I go in 11th grade to Chaminade Madonna in Hollywood. All of a sudden, I am the smart rich kid because I have an 11-year-old car when I'm in a junior in high school. And I was just like, okay. So I learned so much about perspective and just seeing where people are and really learning. So, I mean, that was just such an amazing experience for me, both schools. But to have that change in the middle of my high school years, and it's something, again, I'll never forget. So I think that perspective for you, just all in all, must have been really life-changing for you.
And it was. I mean, it was the first time that I ever visited a condo, a penthouse,
right,
at a condo that had complete view all around. That condo's still around in Miami. And I remember getting on the elevator, and the elevator stops in the condo. Nobody else could go up to that condo. And we walk around, and I'm just in awe that I could see Miami Beach, that I could see the North End, that I could see. I mean, it was wild for me to even imagine that someone could live like that, because that's not what I was exposed to. So there were a lot of experiences like that, or where people will invite to their house for a party. And I'm like looking around and saying, you have your own room? As opposed to, you're sharing a room with your aunt or with your brother. It's like, wow, this is, wow, you can actually do this. And it also showed me a path. It showed me a path because the path was education. And one of the things my parents always said is, when Castro came in, they took their properties, they took their dignity, they took everything, it took the liberty, but they were not able to take their education.
Right.
And so when we came here, I did not know what school I was going to go to. I did not know what university, but my parents said, you will go to college. You're going to go to college. That's it. It's not a question. You're going to go to college. Now, they didn't know how that would work out or how to do that. So I was kind of at a disadvantage, but I could find out, through the school counselor and all that stuff. But me going to LaSalle was definitely life-changing in getting at the issue that you mentioned, which was also the diversity of thought. Because the diversity of thought, even when you're in middle school, you're all learning, you're all doing those things, but it's a different mentality based on your socioeconomic status. A lot of it is. And then all of a sudden, socioeconomic status is a little different. And you have multi-layered at LaSalle, which all of those things really prepared me to do the work at the public defender's office.
Right. And so you graduate, you go to college, you go to Miami-Dade?
I went to Miami-Dade I took the long route.
Okay. So let's go into that.
So I started in Miami-Dade in 1977, and I was working full time at Exxon. I got my job at Exxon when I was 16. I graduated when I was 17. And so I started going full time in the summer, and working full time in the summer. And then I signed up for the fall for Miami-Dade College. And as I mentioned to you, when I registered, all of a sudden they're telling me there's just money available because we're poor. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, what is this? But I continued to work. And at work, I continued to get promotions. So even at 17, you know, I was actually 16 when I started. And then when I was 17, they moved me at a gas station where you're called the shift manager. You're in charge of all the other employees during your shift. I was 17. I look now and I'm like, what were they thinking? But I guess they saw that I was a little more mature.
Right. Maybe you're an old soul.
Well, and the other thing is, one of the things that shaped me growing up, I was not hanging out with the other kids in the neighborhood because I went to work with my dad. So since 10, when I would finish class, I would get on a bus and go to the church and help him clean floors, clean bathrooms, paint.
So you had the blue collar work ethic from a very young age.
Very young age. So I didn't know any different than that. So when I started working at Exxon, I came with all that ingrained, and they were like in heaven because they're like, oh my God, this kid will clean bathrooms without, you know, blinking an eye. He'll just go and clean the bathrooms as opposed to paint curbs, do whatever needs to be done. He'll get it done. And I just thought that was normal from my dad because he would do anything that needed to get done as part of the job. And so I got that. So that also shaped my focus. And at church, you can imagine working at the church, I'm not really hanging out with other kids. So I'm hanging out with other adults, and I naturally picked up the habits of the older folks, you know, the respect, how you talk to people, how you interact with everybody.
Looking somebody in the eye when you speak to them and they speak to you, which is very underrated. And, and does, you know, we need a big improvement in that. These days.
So all those things, you know, happened along the way. So when I got my first paying job, all of a sudden that was just a natural for me to interact with people who were older than me at all sorts of ages. And that actually helped along the way. So I took the long route with Miami-Dade College because I was very ambitious. I was trying to do 12 credit hours a semester while working full time.
That can be tough.
I could not get it done. So I would start with 4 classes. I would drop 2, or I would drop 3. And then at Exxon, they kept promoting me because I wanted to do something else. Because I felt like at Exxon back then, it was gas stations, full service gas stations. And your options were to work at the full service gas station or to work in the garage for more money, but you got your hands dirty and you had to do oil and all. I did not want to get my hands dirty. So I was like, there's no future for me here. And when I said that to my boss said, let me talk to my supervisor and see. So at age 18, I got my first big promotion to actually run multiple gas stations.
Wow.
And so at 18, there was something new that had been introduced to Miami, which was called self-service gas stations. That's all we have now.
Right.
And back then, that was novel.
I don't remember the full service. See, I was born in 81.
Oh, yeah. So, you missed that.
Right. So I missed that whole thing.
You missed it altogether. So in 78, they had just introduced them. So instead of making me a manager for 1 station, they made me a manager for 4, which I did not know how difficult it was going to be because I'm like, I'll do whatever needs to get done.
You're on the fast track to a very good career.
Yeah, exactly. And so what ended up happening, they gave me 4, which the money then got really good. And then they gave me 6, and 2 of them were up here, actually. One was
Are they still here?
They're not Exxon.
Okay.
One is off of Commercial way out. Back then, that was the only thing out there.
Right. Okay.
And so you would drive out there and I would be like, who's buying gas? And they were selling gas. So I guess that's when the suburbs started moving.
Right. It's kind of like East Kendall and West Kendall for Miami peeps, right?
Well, I had the gas station by the zoo, which was the southernmost that Exxon had. But I started getting all those responsibilities, and I liked the responsibilities. I liked the more money. And I just kept moving up. And then at one point, they asked me if I wanted to become a manager of a full service gas station. And of course I said yes, because it was more money. So that was back in 85. And so I took over one station out in Kendall. And when I took over the station, I started doing that. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, I'm never going to finish school. Because I started at Miami-Dade. I did several years. I went Miami-Dade from 77 to 82. And then I moved to Austin, Texas. I attended University of Texas at Austin because of my grades at Miami-Dade. They were good enough to get in. So I was able to get in. And I did that for 2 years. But my dad got really ill. So I only had 14 credits left to graduate. When my mom called me and she's like, I don't think your dad's going to make it more than a week or two. I ended up taking my exams, drop everything, moved back to Miami. My dad did not die. He had been in the hospital for 30 days straight. And he recovered. They released him. And then all of a sudden I had to make, because now we're in the summer, had to make the decision, do I sign up at UT again or do I go to FIU? And I ended up saying, you know what? I'm going to go to FIU. I'll go to FIU. And FIU charged me out of town tuition.
Oh, no.
Because they said, you don't live here. And I'm like, but I do. My driver's license, everything shows here. And I was paying out of state at UT. And I lost my appeal. Because even back then, I'm like, okay, I got to talk to somebody. So I lost my appeal. So I ended up paying $7,500 for tuition for 2 semesters. And I think it was 2 semesters. It may have been 3.
You're like, I'll give you a tour of where I grew up. I'll show you I live here.
And I still have my driver's license from Florida. Right. And
they just wanted them.
They didn't buy that. But I ended up graduating. So undergrad, I finished at FIU. And when I finished at FIU, one of my professors, one of my mentors had mentioned to me that I should consider, he asked me, what do you want to do next? And I told him, look, my reality is I want to keep moving up in Exxon because I have been doing very well, even with the gas station. I was winning awards, the most profitable in the Southeast U.S., most sell tires, most sell a lot of different things. And I liked it because it would bring more money. And I'm like, I like more money in my paycheck. So that's very good. So I just figured I want to keep working for Exxon. So I went to my boss and I said, what will it take for me not to have your job, but for me to have your boss's job?
Oh, okay.
I told him.
So you wanted to just leapfrog.
I wanted to leapfrog. And he was excellent. The guy was such a good mentor. He tells me, well, here's the reality check. It is no longer, because when I asked him a question first, he said, you need to get your bachelor's first. By the time I got my bachelor's, he's like, if you don't have a JD or a master, I had no idea what a JD was, or a master's or a PhD, there's no way, because the people you're competing against for those types of high-level jobs are individuals who not only have the experience of running stations and doing this kind of job and supervision, but that they actually have the academic background that they show they can do this kind of stuff. So all of a sudden, the bar got a little higher, and I decided, okay, I got to go for something. I applied to one law school, University of Miami, and I applied to one graduate school, which was USC, out in California, because my mentor said they have a really good political science program. They have a good PhD program. And you have a really good shot of getting the one scholarship that they give. So I applied for it. I didn't get it. But I got the UM letter first. So that's how I ended up at UM Law, because it was here. And my dad had passed away. My dad passed away when I was at FIU. So I stayed. I wanted to stay. My mom's here. And so I stayed here. I went to UM, graduated from UM. And at UM, I ended up in the public defender's office.
Right. And so before we get to that, I want to talk just a little bit about blue collar versus white collar. So here you are growing up in a blue collar family. You're learning about hard work. You learned hard work is the norm. And it wasn't until you got older and saw more of life experiences where you realized that the things you did were maybe not normal, right? With that level of work ethic. But yet your parents pushed the education, right? They pushed the education and maybe more of getting a little bit away from the blue collar to the white collar. And yet when you work your way up through Exxon, you're still blue collar. Then you get into more of the managerial roles. You're kind of shifting. And now you're going on to, okay, well, now I'm a college graduate, which back then was a much bigger deal than it is now.
Right.
And you know, I personally think that there should be a bit of a renaissance of some trade schools and different things.
Yep.
I think that too many people go to college these days, and you know, and I'm highly educated, right? I'm an attorney, just like you. But then you go to law school, right? Or you're figuring out, okay, well, how do I get not my boss's job, my boss's job, which to me is incredible. So talk to us just a little bit about how you figured out how to blend the two, because one thing for me is, and one of the tenets of our Rossen law firm is we bring a blue collar level of work ethic and toughness in a white collar skill ability profession, such as law, specifically criminal defense. And it's very rare these days that you can have the white collar job with the blue collar mentality. So you obviously had that years ago when you were growing up. So just walk us through, you know, how that really developed in you.
Yeah. I think it's something that because of the experiences, I didn't even know that there was a dichotomy. To me, even though I was exposed, I was exposed to wealthy people, to lawyers. At the gas station, the first gas station that I worked at, one of the customers was Frank Borman. You may not remember that name, but he was the CEO of Eastern Airlines, and he was an astronaut. He was a customer, regular customer. And so I was exposed to him. I was exposed to Eduardo Padron, who ended up being the president of Miami-Dade College. He was one of my customers too when I was 17. So in looking at all these things, I had examples of what success looked like. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to do more than just pump gas. Right. I knew I wanted to do a lot more. And I looked for other types of jobs too, managerial jobs, which is, when I look back, I'm like, what was I doing? And I was telling my boss all the time. And I've always done that with my bosses. I tell them when I'm looking for another job. I tell them why I'm looking for another job. And typically it opens up doors at the job that I'm at, because they're like, no, we want to keep you.
We have this role now.
We have this role,
right.
And we want to try you out with this.
It's like, oh, Carlos, thank you for telling me. I had no idea you wanted to elevate. So let's figure it out. And that's also having great bosses as well.
I was blessed with great bosses. I really was. Every step of the way. At Exxon, I had excellent bosses. In the public defender's office, the head of the office, Bennett Brummer, he's been retired now. Excellent mentor, spent his time with me, gave me lots of opportunities, things that I did not even know I wanted to do. Because he took me out of the trial division, took me out of something that I loved doing, and I wanted to get into appeals. And I ended up doing a couple of appeals. And all of a sudden, as a 5-year lawyer, he asked me, do you want to be in my administration? I'm like, doing what?
Right. You're like, I want the big, sexy, fun trials, right? Most of us go be a prosecutor or a PD to help people, but also because we have that, we want that rush of winning and trials. So, okay. So let's fast forward a little bit. Let's talk about that. So you become an assistant public defender. How old are you at this time?
When I was 30 when I was hired.
There's a big difference between most of the people that you probably hire and
100.
myself being a 25-year-old with no life or work experience, either assistant state attorney or assistant public defender. So you had years of real life work experience, and not just, I had work experience waiting tables for the fun of it and for the extra money of it in a little bit in high school and in college. But I wish I took a year or two off to be a legal assistant in a law firm or some other job where it was a 9 to 5 and 8 to 5:30, whatever, a full just day in, day out. It would have been much better for me. Luckily, I had, my basketball, like the kind of the toughness and work ethic of being a pretty good basketball player to fall back on. But I wish I had that. And I think a lot more people need to work in between. So what was that like being 30 and in a second career, just being a little bit older?
Well, the first striking thing about the second career is when they offered me the job, I had never even looked at the public defender's office what the salary was until I get the job. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, and how much does it pay? And when they told me how much it paid, I did not miss a beat. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a $7,000 base pay cut from what I was making at Exxon 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, I have all this debt. I'm going to make $7,000 less. Oh, this is not good math.
Right. You could have been probably $15,000 more and, with kept getting raises had you stayed.
But you know what? It was such a blessing for me to end up in the public defender's office. And the way I ended up in the public defender's office, after my first year, that summer, they had something that was called the Summer Honors Program at UM. That's now called HOPE. So I think you were there when it was HOPE.
Right, it was.
Okay.
Yep.
So it was public service. And what they had done is they had gotten some funding so that there would be a stipend for the student for the summer. You would get 6 credit hours. And what you had to do is work at a law firm. And on the way to class, the day that they were going to place us in a law firm, there was a car crash in front of me. I was not involved in the car crash, but I was the only witness to it. So they asked me, as I was going to pull out, they asked me, would you stay? And I'm like, well, I'm going to class. And they're like, you're the only witness. Can you please stay? So I stayed. So I was late to class. When I walked into class, the only job that was left was in the public defender's office. And I had no idea. And by the way, the jobs were posted on the blackboard and it did not say where you're going to work. It was a topic. So the only topic that was left, it was the word prostitutes.
Okay.
When I walk in late, I walk in through the back of the class. I sit down. I'm start looking at the board. I have no idea what's happening in the class because I'm late and I'm fixated on prostitutes. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about that they have the word prostitute? So as I'm looking at it, the teacher calls on me and says,
we found our guy.
Good morning. This summer, you'll be working with prostitutes.
Alleged. Yeah.
Well, she didn't say alleged. She said with prostitutes.
We say now,
right?
alleged.
The interesting thing is, I was raised in the Catholic Church. Altar boy, Boy Scout, all those things. And even though with the gas stations and the language used at gas stations, you can imagine, very different from church. But even with all of that, the minute she told me you'll be working with prostitutes, my friends all tell me, you turned beet red, you got totally embarrassed, you could not say a word, your ears got red, and so everybody starts cracking up when she says, you'll be working with prostitutes. And then she starts explaining what the work will be. And she mentions you'll be working in the public defender's office. I had no idea what a public defender's office was. Never had that issue with anybody. So didn't know. When I turned to the person next to me and I asked her, what is a public defender's office? She says, oh, those are the ones that work with people who committed crimes. And I look at her and I'm like, criminal law? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's one of the two things I don't want to do.
Right.
I don't want to do personal injury or criminal. And I'm like, okay, it's summer. I'll do it. And it changed my life because the first interaction I had with clients, it was as if I was back in the church, in the reception area of the church, when people who were poorer than us would come in seeking help. And all of a sudden I realized I was meant to do this work.
People, not cases. Right?
People.
Okay. So talk to us about that, where you're realizing that this is not an academic exercise.
This is real.
This is real. These are people. These are husbands, wives, fathers, brothers, sisters, right? Daughters, who are good people. And they're people from your community where you grew up. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So you're a little older, right? So you're in your 30s now, right? Or 30, or about to be 30, second career. What's that like where you're meeting these people and talking to them and falling in love with this job?
So I know how I felt, and I felt like it was a gift that I've been given. And I didn't know how much I exhibited that. So fast forward about 20 years, I go to a law school, a class reunion. And when I show up to a class reunion, one of the classmates who was in that class, I had forgotten that she was in that class. There were almost 30 students in that class. Like, I didn't remember she was in that class. She runs over to me with her husband, and she looks at him and she says, honey, this is the guy I've been talking to you about. And I'm looking at her like, what is she talking about?
You're like, this is either going to be really good or I'm going to get punched by the husband.
I'm like, I have no idea what this is. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I told him when you got elected, she lives in Broward, when you got elected, and it was in the newspaper and it was in the news, you're swearing in and all that other stuff. I told them this guy knew from day one he was going to do this job. And it's so cool to see him rise to the point where he's running the office where he was an intern. And so, of course, I'm like, oh, thank you. She's like, no. This is how we knew. When we had our first class after we had done a week of internship, she said that when I walked in and I was called on to talk about the class, they all thought that I was high because I was so giddy over being able to work with people who needed help, where I felt I was actually helping them and connecting them either to their families or to their lawyer, because I was supposed to be handling the complaints from clients who had not seen their lawyers. So that was my job as an intern. Best job
so
I ever had.
Stuck you in the customer service department.
Exactly, which I had done that with Exxon. So I'm like, okay.
I'm ready for this.
I know this stuff. And she said that when I started recounting that afterwards, they were all so jealous because they had gone to different offices. I'm not going to mention what kind of, it was all nonprofits, but it was not that kind of experience. It was, look up this case, look up that case, write this memo, go get coffee. Other sorts of things like that were not where you actually felt you were helping people. So she told me that, and I'm like, thank you for sharing that. I never knew. I know how I felt when I was talking, but I never knew that you guys thought I was high. Like, high on what? And they're like, we were like, is he okay? Because you were gesticulating. You were so happy. You're like, oh my God. And then I did this. And then I did that. But that's how I felt. And that's how I felt. So imagine going into a job that you like the job, that you feel good about the job, and you're learning a lot of things about other people. And you're not just learning the law, but applying the law immediately.
Well, and you understand the reason for the work. It's connected to the work, as opposed to, well, just do this brief, answer these interrogatories, whatever. You're just doing work, or it's more of an academic setting, maybe in school, but this is your meeting and living and breathing and connecting with the reason for the work, the people, to help people.
Right.
And so I think that was probably so impactful. And I know it is for us and everything that we do here. And that's a big part of our mission, right? Is to feel that impact. So I think when the reason and the work are connected, the why behind it, right? I'm big on the why. Always have to understand the why that we do things. It makes everything gets better. Everything gets better from that. So you come back, you're in love with this, and you I'm assuming, so you get offered the job as an assistant public defender. You start there. Now, who is in charge of the office at this time when you start? So it's okay. So you weren't there when Phil Hubbard was.
No. Phil Hubbard left in 1976.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you're there, and you want to be this hotshot trial lawyer. Is that, or
not really?
No,
I did not even know. When I went to law school, I had no idea what a trial lawyer was. I had no idea what litigation was. All I knew, to me, was that this is the path to get further in Exxon.
Right.
That was it.
But when you start, so now you're here at DePita. You're here. You're starting. Is it, because law school makes us competitive.
Yeah.
Right. And when you go there and you start to see a little bit of success, you continue to get competitive, and it rewards 100%. Competitiveness. So at this point, were you, competitive, or were you just, hey, I'm going to come fit in and love this?
No. I was competitive mainly in motions, because I was a motion monster. When I realized that I can get a lot of cases dismissed through motion practice, I became an expert at motion practice, and I had done trials as an intern. I had already tried cases second chair I had done 6 trials before.
I had 5 during my CLI at the state,
which is fantastic.
I had one guilty verdict. I won one trial against a very experienced criminal defense attorney who then later became a judge. Wow. So it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and it really shapes you. But what I try to tell people is, the motion practice is trial preparation. Trial prep. The trial is a show, because the trial happens so rare that what you do beforehand and getting to know the client, getting to know the case, doing all the research, filing the appropriate motions, that is the work. So I came to it from that perspective, and particularly as an intern, I was given a lot of opportunities as an intern. When people would go on vacation, I would get their caseload while they're on vacation, and they had scheduled a bunch of depositions.
Right.
So I had taken probably close to 1,000 depositions during my CLI, because I would take, when people would call, hey, I'm stuck in a deposition, I'll do it. Didn't matter whose deposition it was. Didn't matter what it was. All I needed was 5-minute prep to read up what they had and I would ask them, what is it you want to get out? And so my deposition practice was through the roof. So by the time I actually became an assistant public defender, tons of experience in motion, tons of experience with depositions, handling calendar, doing trials. So I felt at home. So it was just, you got a lot more of it. Because as an intern, they don't give you the really full caseload.
Right.
Once you say, they're trying to woo you. So they're not
this place is great. You're gonna love it.
They're not going to give you 250 misdemeanors. But when I started, I went to the misdemeanor division, and unfortunately, because of how many CLI semesters I had done, I did 3 CLI semesters.
Oh,
I just stayed 3 CLI semesters. So because of all that I had done, I did not move with my class, because, they hire Broward and Dade hire in the class. I did not move with my class. They moved me to felonies. Everybody went to county, went to juvenile.
So you got to leapfrog everybody, and by the time you were officially a lawyer, you were just rocking and rolling.
And I didn't know how much people were going to dislike that.
Well, because it's competitive, and but that's okay.
But that's not what I was looking at. That's
Right.
that. So when you mention competitive, I'm competitive, but against myself,
Right.
not against what others are doing. I just look at, can I do more? Can I do better? And I focus on that.
Yeah.
So the journey becomes easier.
Right. And it's always internal. And that's great, because some people say comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
But I also think it's more nuanced than that, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And so when you are pushing, it doesn't have to be, look at what so-and-so has. It just wants to be, how do I get better? It's in a way, it's like, all right, how do we just get to the next level of Candy Crush, right? Or whatever. It's like, we're in a video game. I'm on level 75. Well, I want to get to level 100 for me, for my own benefit, for my own experience and satisfaction. And so it's really not an external thing. It's more of an internal thing. So I completely understand, and that's a lot of the ways that I work and the firm works as well, being just competitive against ourselves. I will say we firmly believe that there's magic in the motions. Motions. I mean,
I'm going to borrow that statement.
There's magic
in the motions.
Yes, there's magic in the motions, and we make it a point here. And I firmly believe outside, and we do have, we have a good amount of cases in Miami-Dade. A big thriving practice in Broward, and a lot of cases in Palm Beach County. But I would say outside of the 3 public defender offices, I don't know of any criminal law firm that files as many motions as we do. It's one of our internal kind of just mantras of, look, if as long as the case isn't overruled, if you're like, there's a 30% chance, you file it. You got to go 20% chance. If it's good faith, you file it, because good things happen. And it's also, it's not so much black and white on the law, meaning if you can file it and it's ethical, file it, because as we all know, you get a prosecutor that's overworked, underpaid, overwhelmed. You get a police officer who can't show, good things happen. And sometimes for us, we don't get as many trials as we all had when we were in government service, whether it was the state or the PD. But a lot of our clients don't want the risk of trial. So when you file those motions, good things happen. And sometimes it's a lot more work. I mean, for me, going to trial for me is easy, significantly easier than writing a very good motion to suppress. But writing that, researching and writing it and pouring your heart into that motion to suppress is worth it every single time for the client. Worst case, you get another free chance to get testimony from a police officer, which always works out well. So great things happen in that. So, I couldn't agree with you more. And so, okay, you're here now, the public defender, Bennett Broomer, wants to pull you out of more of the litigation into administration. What were your thoughts through this process?
I thought it was a 6-month gig, because that's how they made it sound afterwards. When I told them, I thought you told me 6 months. They're like, we never said 6 months. We just said, you'll be back in division in a year. And I'm like, I don't remember hearing a year.
You're in division administration now.
Right? But you know what was interesting is that very quickly I started learning that the issues that I was handling in administration had impacts beyond one client. It would have impacts on 30 clients, on 100 clients, on 1,000 clients. So that became very attractive to me. And when I was at Exxon, not only was I managing my own gas stations, but I was the fix-it guy. So if there was a station that was failing, the boss would tell me, I need you to go over there for a week, fix that, and keep doing your job. But I need you to go fix this other place. And up here, there was one station on Atlantic Beach Boulevard, on A1A. There was an Exxon at that corner where everybody, most of the staff, including the manager, got arrested for drug trafficking. They were trafficking out of the gas station.
Okay. So and we've done it all, seen it all in criminal defense, right?
But this was before I went to law school.
Okay, right.
All these people got arrested. The boss calls me up. And, the regional manager calls me up and he's like, I need you to go to such and such a station. There is no staff there. There are only police cars. Everything has been cordoned off. Everybody has been carted to jail. I'm like, what? He's like, everybody's been carted to jail. What I need you to do. And it was like, I had to go there and make sure things weren't stolen. Big station. Things were stolen, but also to manage with the few employees that were not arrested, to manage the rest of the day and then hire and do all that stuff. So my work had been what Exxon, not just what I was doing, but they would have me go fix other stations and go audit. They wouldn't call it an audit, but it was an audit. Other people, other managers were doing, and then recommend to them things that they could do differently and all that other stuff. So I had a lot of experience in problem solving before law school. So when I got moved into administration, and they did not know that. They knew that I worked for Exxon, but they didn't know the details because they never asked.
But I'm sure those things probably rang true in the way that you handled cases.
Yes.
In the day, maybe the daily preparation, because we know in criminal law, there's problems every day. Things happen, surprises, and it's really just how do you handle that? The one constant is there's going to be change and there's going to be emergencies.
And there's going to be a lot of surprises. Yes. And I think one of the things that they noticed is most of the time I would not even have to call administration. I would handle it. Whatever the issue was, and I didn't know that it was inappropriate until later for me to actually go talk to a judge and tell him, you can't do this in court. Nobody told me you can't do that. I wasn't talking about a case. I was just telling them, I saw this, I saw that. You really shouldn't be doing that. And the judges appreciated it. But, the judges would tell my boss, when I was a trial attorney, they would tell my boss, hey, that guy's really mature. He came in to talk to me about this and that. And of course, these people are like, he did what?
Right. Because there's the image and the politics. And everything.
Right. And a lot of things that you're like,
I'm just solving problems.
I just see this, I see that. And I wasn't the head of anything. But so when I got moved into administration, there was a lot of problem solving. There were a lot of issues. And Bennett ran the office prior to that point, very lean. There was really almost no middle management. So everybody was doing their own thing. And he wanted to put a little more structure so that the outcomes were better and more consistent across the board, and that we were adopting technology. We were automating a lot of things way back. It was 95. And so he wanted to take it to the next level. And he was a tinkerer. He liked to tinker. I love to tinker. So it was a very good match. And every time I complained about something, he would just say, fix it. And he would give me a lot of times carte blanche to fix whatever I saw as a problem.
And so when you move into administration, obviously there's little tweaks here and there, but this is something that I'm glad you brought up because I really want to talk to you about this. As a private criminal defense lawyer, we have clients. And a lot of times we have to sacrifice our desire for the cause in order to do what's best for the individual client. Now, the public defender's office, you have many, many more clients than we do, but you also have the ability to really stand up for the cause, I think, more than one small criminal lawyer or a small criminal law firm. So in your office, how do you balance the desire to help the individual client versus the greater good, the cause that you might be the champion for?
So the best way to balance that is I do not interfere with my frontline lawyers. You handle the case. Now, if it's a high profile case, I want to talk about the case. I want to talk about what you're doing, and I'll give some feedback and advice, and they'll tell me, and we'll explore some things. But I let them do the work. I let you fight in court. You do what you need to do in court. And then the bigger issues that I have to fight either with the state attorney or with judges or with the police departments, police chiefs or whatever, I will do that at my level. And that's how I can effectuate change that will trickle down to them and will trickle down to the attorneys. So I don't see it as a conflict, I think because I learned from Bennett, you let the lawyers try the cases. You let the lawyers prepare the cases, have their clients, and be solely focused on the client. And then when there are issues that are touchy, sometimes you have a high profile homicide.
Right.
That it doesn't mean that you're going to handle it differently, but if you're going to give a quote, it's going to be a little different than if just the person who's trying it is the one giving the quote, where they're just focusing on, oh, I want to get this out, without really knowing what's your point of, you want to get this out for what? What's the purpose of getting this out? So in terms of being able to balance it, most of the time it is not that difficult, because of most issues, the systemic change issues are not the issues that the attorneys deal with. Those are the ones that I will deal with, whatever the topic of the day is.
Right. And what do you think are some of the characteristics that make good judges good and make good prosecutors good?
In terms of prosecutors, hardworking. You got to have somebody who's hardworking. You got to have somebody who's compassionate, and who doesn't draw a stark line between victim and defendant. What I mean about that is, today's victim, maybe tomorrow's defendant, or vice versa. And what I've seen through, the history that I've had with clients, thousands and thousands of clients, is it's interchangeable depending on where it is. And at the bottom line is, they're all human. They're all human. Yeah, kind of like what your slogan is. You got to be focusing on the individual who did a bad thing, but they're a good person. And you got to start from that. You got to start from that. You can't start thinking. So if you have a prosecutor who thinks that everybody's bad, that's going to be a bad prosecutor, because that prosecutor is not open to real life. They're not. They're not open to real life, to what happens. People make bad choices all the time. I've made bad choices many times. Particularly younger I was, the worst choices I would make. And there are people that make choices. There are other times that is not a choice. Other times it's due to addiction. Other times it's due to mental health situation, where the person doesn't know any better or can't do any better at that point in time. So to me, a good prosecutor is one who's a hard worker, who's compassionate. Life experience is key. And unfortunately, we have to hire people right out of law school. Prosecutors have to hire people out of law school. I wish there was more time in between, so that way somebody would have at least a year or two life experience. So when you come at it, a misdemeanor case, a low-level case, is not a federal case.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. And
until you get to a felony score sheet, you don't realize that it's just a 0.2 on the priors, right? It took me as a prosecutor to get to felony to go, oh, yeah, that's just a 0.2. Wow.
Yeah, and you get perspective.
Right. Yes, perspective. Yes.
You get that perspective. So it's important for a good prosecutor to have that. With the judges, I really would love to see judges with more trial experience, because a lot of times we'll get judges that don't have that much trial experience. They may have been, particularly, you're a trial judge, you're not shuffling paper in court. You're a trial judge. So to me, the best judges are the ones that know the evidence rules cold, who have tried cases before. It's a plus if they've been in the public defender's office or state attorney's office, because in those jobs, even though they may not be inclined, you're going to get perspective. The more cases you handle, and you're going to get trial experience. So that's always good. But I've seen some very good civil litigators who have become judges. And actually, some of them have become the best judges, because they come at things with the importance that we assign to dollars.
Right. Yes. Yes.
All of a sudden they come in and they believe that that same importance that you gave to the dollars, you're giving to the people.
Which in criminal law, not everybody
Not
puts that
everybody,
importance in.
no, they don't. They don't come at it like that. And if they did come at it like that, we would have depositions on misdemeanor cases
Absolutely.
where people are going to,
We still have our speedy trial rights.
They're going to speedy trial. That was awful, the change that they made with that. But some of those civil litigators, when they've come in and they have that experience of valuing every client, when they come over to criminal and they bring that with them and they exercise that in court, it's a beautiful thing.
Right. Now, as a leader of the largest criminal defense law firm in the state of Florida, but you also have a very limited budget that is set by the legislature. What do you do to attract and, more importantly, retain top talent? Because everybody in your office is overworked and underpaid.
Yeah. Well, like I tell people, it's not magic, it's math. So I get a budget. I have authority within my budget. And when I first came in, was during the crisis, the housing crisis, back in 2009. And, we had foreclosures. We had a lot of people, cases were coming in left and right, criminal cases. And my budget got slashed 14%.
Wow.
While felonies went up 19%. My first year. It's
quite the challenge.
Welcome to being the public defender. And
you wanted this, you got it.
And somebody christened me the captain of the Titanic. And I'm like, I like a challenge. And what I ended up having to do is trying to figure out. When I ran Exxon gas stations, I knew that I had to sell a certain amount to make a certain amount of money. I knew how much money I had to pay salaries, to pay benefits, and you made it work. So when I first came into Exxon as a manager, I went into one store, which was the largest one that I had managed. And when I found out the profit they had for the previous year, it was $2,000. And I'm like, how is it possible that this station that is selling so much gas every month, selling so many tires, that you're not making more money? And what I discovered very quickly was how much overtime we were paying. And what the previous boss had done, he had a certain number of employees and everybody was getting either 8, 16, or 24 hours overtime every week. That's no way to manage. So what I ended up doing is I hired my first high school student from nearby, from Killian High School. And when he came in, I said, I need about 20 more that you trust that are not going to be stealing from me. So I ended up hiring 23 part-timers.
Oh, that's good. And
I kept my best employees who were always selling beyond what they could sell. Those I kept them with overtime, but everybody else I put 40 hours a week. So all of a sudden I win the award that year for the most profitable gas station. And so that's why I said it's not magic, it's math. The same thing with the public defender's office. It's a little more restricted because I can't bring business in.
Right.
Because if I can bring business in, then the amount of money that I have is obviously higher and my margin is higher. So I can try to figure out other things. But what I've been able to do is since the beginning, I had to figure out, I don't have enough lawyers. I have too many clients, not enough lawyers. The lawyers don't have enough time to be able to do this. So the first thing that I did, we engaged in litigation. Bennett Brummer had started the litigation. I kept it up on excessive caseloads, that the attorneys had too many cases. They were being incompetent. And I kept up that litigation. But the focus of the litigation, when I looked at it, I'm like, I can't just be going in and saying, I don't have enough attorneys. I got to figure out, how am I running my shop? Are there places where I can save money? Are there places where I can shift money? Are there functions that I can either automate or try to figure out a more efficient way to do it? So one of the first things that I did is I contacted Miami-Dade County and I said, by the way, I never wanted us to be talking to clients by video, but I knew that my lawyers going to the jails, it was an hour and a half ride back and forth. Well, they don't have enough time for clients. Imagine if every day I could pick up an hour and a half, you're going to be able to help more clients. So Miami-Dade County, extremely helpful. I told them I want to use my budget to buy video equipment and have secure lines from the jail, from these private rooms that I saw. I want to take them over and they'll be our equipment, but I want to connect it so that we can do video interviews. So all of a sudden we're talking.
That's 15 years ago.
That was 2010. So the county came up with the money. They allowed me to spend the money. And I was able to put that in. And all of a sudden, not only were they not spending an hour and a half ride, they were actually talking to more clients. Imagine talking to a client, not meeting them for the first time in court.
Right. Better lawyers, better results, helping people.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I figured that out. I also, one of the things that I put in place back then was remote depositions. We did not have remote depositions until COVID, except we started in 2010. Because I'm like, here's how that can help me. Because when I analyzed the work that we were doing, we were resetting so many depositions, and particularly low-level low-level felonies, third-degree felonies. We were setting so many because the cops would show up without the paperwork. I'm like, I'll talk to the police departments and, hey, can we install this equipment? I'll pay for your equipment. Can we install this equipment? And the equipment was just a camera, okay? In your place so that we can do depositions, through Skype. Our first depositions were on Skype. And so we moved a bunch of the third-degree felonies to Skype. So all of a sudden, the resets go down, which means I don't need as many support staff to be sending subpoenas, doing all that stuff. So I tinkered a lot with a lot of ways to try to figure out, because that also helped me in my case in court. When I'm going to court and saying, I cannot handle all these cases, I knew they were going to ask me, well, what are you doing?
Right. What are you going to do to fix it? Right.
Right. So I did everything. And despite all those things, we still could not get to every client. But that helped us out because all of a sudden we made a better case for the things that we were. So over the years, when I came into office, we had a 1-to-1 ratio, support staff to attorneys. We had roughly 200 support staff, 200 attorneys. Support staff were secretaries, clerical staff, the intake interviewers at the jail, social workers that do mitigation work, and all that. And obviously HR, admin, and all that. When I first came in, again, not magic, it's math. I looked at it and I'm like, I went to my budget director and I said, what would happen if I cut 50 support staff positions? How many lawyers could I hire? She tells me 25. And I'm like, that's my goal for the 4 years. Because it's going to have to be slow on attrition. I'm not going to start firing people.
Right. It's just as people leave, you don't replace them.
Exactly. So I started doing that. So when I came in, it was 200 to 200. Right now, I have 230 lawyers and 130 support staff.
Okay.
So now I'm as lean as I'm ever going to be. And we're obviously using AI. And we've used AI to automate some of our processes. For example, I used to have 10 clerical staff because we have so many filings from the state attorney, so many things that were e-filed and all that. I had 10 staff that would receive that information and then move it to our case management system. Now I have machine learning doing that. So during COVID, I couldn't hire clerks. And I'm like, okay, we got to put this in place. And I have a great operations director. She worked with a lot of these firms, these private firms that do AI work and that kind of thing. We put that in place. And now we're working with other companies to be automating even more things.
And for a governmental entity to be at the forefront of that is quite impressive, because as we know, well, the legal industry is slow to begin with. The groups that I go to, the marketing and management and business groups, we're very AI focused. At those groups, we have a big focus in the next year here at Rossen Law Firm to be even bigger with AI. Lots of amazing ideas that we're doing, but to see it in the government is great, because that's where really that ingenuity happens. And I guess when you're constrained by the limitations of a budget, you can either do nothing or figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're doing. So,
and what I was able to do is take the money from those support staff positions that I couldn't and I didn't want to fill, and use that money for lawyers.
Right.
So that's how I was able to pay lawyers more and more. And I've also been working very well with the state attorney and with the legislature. In the last 4 years, we've gotten good raises to get the attorneys to a point where they're going to stay.
Yes. There have been quite a bit.
Yeah. So
makes us poaching a little harder for us, but yes, it has been very good. My wife's a prosecutor in Palm Beach. And
okay.
And she's one of the few good ones. She's she gets it.
Good.
But yeah, it helps. It really helps. Because there's a lot of people who, if they could afford to, they would make full careers out of it.
Correct.
Either the state or the public defender's office. So Carlos, we've talked for so long. I feel like we can go another hour now on AI. Maybe we'll have you back for part 2 on
Sure.
AI. I would love to do that. But just as we're wrapping up here, because this is the Success in South Florida podcast, there's so many takeaways from your journey, so many life lessons. What would you say would be the top 3 lessons for anybody listening to this, really that helped shape you in your life, your career, and just your legacy?
Yeah, I look, the number one is you got to be ready to do the work, and you got to be willing to do the work. And what I mean by that, you can't just look at it as a job, no matter what you're doing, no matter what it is. That's one of the things I learned from my dad, that even when he was cleaning floors, even when he was waxing floors, he was a perfectionist. So I could actually wax floors and it looks like glass, because I saw him doing it. So I think the first thing is, if you're going to do something, do the best that you can at what that is, no matter what the job is. The other aspect of it is be open for opportunities. I did not want to do public defender work. I did not want to do that work. I did not want to do criminal law. But when the chance came as an intern and I saw that work, and I went ahead and did it, despite me saying, oh my God, this is one of the things I did not want to do. And then when I did it, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that I found my calling. I had no idea what my calling was, other than I want to make more money. And of course,
that didn't happen.
That was the wrong, it's going this way.
Right.
So that's the second one, is be ready for the opportunities. Don't be so stuck in what you think you're going to do and what other people expect you to do. Because a lot of times we just do what other people expect you to do. I have the benefit that my parents, all they expected is for me to be successful. They did not turn me down on anything. They never said a bad thing about whether working for a gas station is a bad idea, whether going to work for the public defender is a bad idea. Now I know why, because my mom thought I was working for the prosecutor, but that's for another day.
Okay, that'll be for when we come back.
But some of those things are really important. The third aspect of it is that I try to do now, which is take the opportunity to help others, whether it's students that need help, whether it's like you're doing, offering an opportunity to intern and do those things. Those things are valuable, and those things will outlast you. I'm going to be dead at some point. I'm just going to be probably a little plaque in the public defender's office. Oh, yeah, he was the public defender from this year to that year. But in fact, my legacy will be through the people that I've helped, the people that I've coached, the people who I have mentored, and the people that I've cared for in terms of making sure they have an environment where they want to work, they want to come to work, and I'm making it possible for them to stay and work there.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So those are some just absolutely amazing words of wisdom. Carlos, what's the best way for anybody listening to this if they want to get in touch with you, if they're inspired to become a public defender, they want to maybe do, they're in high school or college, they want to just do a regular internship, or they're in law school and they say, I want to be a CLI now, right? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you or your administrative team?
So my website, the office website, is www.pdmiami.com. P for public, D for defender, Miami.com. If you want to get a hold of me, it's cmartinez@pdmiami.com. Unfortunately, I don't have a space for high school students.
Okay.
I have space mostly for law students and some for college students. So this summer I have 50 interns. I don't have more space. I mean, physically
Right.
we're like capped out. And that's why, we had to not really get high school students right now.
Okay. So for anybody, that's a great way. I highly encourage people to reach out for anything or just words of advice. Thank you so much for being here. I can't
Thank
wait
you.
now. As soon as we're done with this, you're going to talk to our interns. It's going to be amazing. And look, it's not every day that you get the elected public defender from Miami to drive an hour to Fort Lauderdale in our studio and spending a half day on a Friday. You could be at the golf course or you could be working. I know.
I don't do golf.
I know you're not a golf. I know you're not a golf guy. But you could be working, mentoring your people, having an impact in your people, and you chose to come up here to have an impact with us and our people. So I am forever thankful and have a tremendous amount of gratitude and appreciation for you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right.